Hey, ParadoxBrothers here. I'm Para. Today I'm going to be doing a side deck video. As you see here, I have an assorted of cards here. I have them set up in rows for different decks that I think these cards could potentially be used against. So let's go ahead and get started. First row here is for Reasoning Gate or Steingate-like decks. Karibo is seeing a lot more popularity recently, and for good reason, because it's a good counter against the giant Trunades that Reasoning Gate, Turbo, and Steingate players like to play. If you discard this card during the damage calculation, which very few cards can interrupt with, then you essentially they just can't prevent you from doing this, and you can stop a battle damage from one of their monsters. And Reasoning Gate decks, and especially Steingate decks, really depend upon every bit of damage they can do for you. Usually it's calculated and it's intended because they don't want to deliver the uh, final blow unless they have all their connected combo pieces lined up. Otherwise, they're going to be quite vulnerable the next turn. So if you can use this, and well-timed Karibo can definitely win you the game if you have a play to do on your next turn. Waboku and Threatening Roar are not as good as Karibo in my opinion. It's important to note also Karibo goes well and synergizes with Thousand Eyes for Strict plays because it's a 1-star, and also Chaos plays because it's a dark. But yeah, back to Waboku and Threatening Roar. These cards are good, but the only problem is, unlike Karibo, that fully extends your opponent because they don't know you have this. They can use their giant Trunades, all their combo pieces. You know, they're say in a Steingate, they bust out Master of Oz, then they Megamorph, all that stuff, and you stop the Master of Oz. The Stein is in attack mode. You know, maybe next turn you have a play. If you do, you probably win. Waboku and Threatening Roar don't really give you that same benefit exactly, because as soon as they activate Giant Trunade, you have to activate this card because you have to operate in the assumption that if they're activating Giant Trunade, they're doing it because they're going to take you out, or at least they think they can. And it's always possible that maybe they have multiple Giant Trunades and they're just testing the water, or maybe they're afraid of a rule, they're afraid of some kind of trap card you may have. And they want to just get rid of it so they can safely play theirs. But you have to operate under the information that you're given, and the information you're given is usually when people drop Giant Trunade and it's Steingate or Reasoning Gate Turbo. It's really bad news for you, so you got to activate this, which is all well and good because you're going to live the turn, and it's guaranteed at that point. But what's not good is they're not overextending, and they could possibly pick up the pieces next turn. Spell Canceller is very good for just disrupting their plays entirely. You play this card, it's a Jinzo for spell cards, and it could just stop them from playing the entire game, especially if they have no outs in their side deck for some reason. Anti-Spell Fragrance is a very underrated card. You play this at 3 in your side deck against those decks, and they're going to hate it, especially if you play Dust Tornadoes or things like that, because they have to set their combo pieces before they can play them, and that just slows them down tremendously. King Tiger Wengu can be really good against really heavy scapegoat-focused decks, just for that reason alone. Jowgen the Spiritualist can be a great comeback card, also light, and if you play Shining Angel, you can special summon him. And if you're behind, like your opponent, say you activate a Waboku, to survive the last turn, your opponent has a field full of monsters, you summon this guy, and you activate his first ability, randomly discard a card from your hand to destroy all special summon monsters on the field, and you can really set them back behind. And if you just summon them turn 1, your opponent can't activate Scapegoat, can't do anything else. If they don't have an out like Brain Control, Snatch Steal, or something like that, they're going to be hurting for a way to get rid of them. Cyberjar can be an interesting blowout card because even though it's only at 1, which is going to make it obviously less consistent, it's very interesting. I play this card quite often. Actually, I play all the time when I play Strike Ninja decks. And when I play against Reasoning Gate using my Strike Ninja decks, I notice that it's fairly common that this card comes into play. Well, they'll attack it, it'll board wipe everything, and while you're going to get special summon monsters off of that, they're not going to, because they can't special summon monsters that can't be normal summoned normally, which is pretty much every card that they play. And not only that, but their Monster Gate plays and their Reasoning Gate plays are going to be heavily affected by that as well. Curse Seal or Forbidden Spell, very good card. It just completely stops them from playing Reasoning Gate entirely. If you ban, you're essentially banning for that duel a Monster Gate or a Reasoning card. Magic Drain can be really good for disrupting their plays, because if they want to stop Magic Drain, they have to discard a spell from their hand. And a lot of times they need all the cards that they have. It's the reason why Delinquent Duo is so good against them. I didn't put Delinquent Duo in here because it's obvious that's good against them. Any combo deck. So that's it for the Steingate, OTK, and Reason Gate turbos. There are obviously going to be more cards that you can side, and some are more optimal than others. These are just some suggestions that I had that maybe you thought of, maybe you did. Moving on down here, Warriors, Sakuretsu Armor, obvious card. Bottomless Trap Hole, maybe not so obvious. This card is great because it not only destroys their monster, which they generally play 1500 attack or higher monsters all the time, but it actually banishes their monster. The only sense I would say is like if you play like a reasoning, you play like a Chaos Turbo deck or something that plays a lot of face downs, you might want to play more Sakus than anything else because of Mystic Swordsman. This won't stop. Bottomless Trapple won't stop Mystic Swordsman, but this will stop their Breakers, their Blade Knights, Skilled Dark Magicians if they happen to play them. It won't stop Don's Lug, but yeah, it's a really good card, and banishing monsters when you're playing against warriors is always better than destroying them. Swords of Revealing Light just stalls for time. Cypher Soldier or Kinetic Soldier, whatever he prefers, just good against warriors, obviously. He's built to be good against warriors. Gravekeeper Spy is interesting. It is pretty decent against warriors, but progressively getting worse because of the use of Grandmaster Sasuke. Berserk Gorilla is just a good card until people start siding in more Zombie or the Darks. Smashing Ground, good to get rid of problematic monsters. Null Extermination is interesting because most warrior decks nowadays will play Solemns, a lot of Solemns, usually 3. And if you hit a Solemn with this card, they have a precarious situation that they have to answer. They either have to Solemn this card to prevent all their Solemns from being banished, which means you effectively just burn them for half their life, or they have to take the hit and banish all their Solemns. And in that case, a lot of times their deck just kind of falls to pieces. DD Assailant over DD Warrior Lady if you're not playing Rhoda because it's stronger. But also, this card's just great for outing warriors. Once again, banishing warrior monsters is better than sending them to the grave. Dust Tornado is just good for destroying their back row because they play a lot of battle traps. Moving on to this row, this is the Goat control side. Book of Moon for 1,000 Eyes of Strix, and Jinzo if they happen to play them. Compulsory Evacuation Device, same thing, although this is probably weaker at this point because of Royal Decree in Goat Control decks. This is extremely good against Goat Control. It just takes out Tsukiyomi, takes out Thousand Eyes of Strix, Scapegoats. It really, really stuns them, as was the name of the King Tiger Stun or Tiger Stun deck. Smashing Ground, good for taking out Thousand Eyes of Strix and Air Knights and just really annoying monsters, even Chaos monsters. This card, Blindly Lore Goblin, is interesting because his control cannot be taken. So Thousand Eyes of Strix cannot take him. Much like Mataza the Zapper, you can't brain control him, you can't mind control him, you can't snatch to him. You can soul exchange him because you're not taking his control of him, you're distributing him. But very good card for beatdown strategies against Goat Control. Drop Dust Shoots, really good against a lot of decks. Just put it in this one because sniping out one of their, their Sinister Serpent or one of their early set monsters because they do play tributes can just really set them behind. Dust Tornado is good for setting early and taking out Royal Decrees. This is good when Royal Decrees is already activated and you need, much like Book of Moon, you need some kind of way of defending yourself. Good offense can be a good defense at times. Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell, much like Reasoning Gate decks, you could just shut down Scapegoat, shut down Metamorphosis, and just shut down the deck entirely. Drive Infecting Virus is obviously good just for wiping the board, wiping Scapegoats, and taking out Thousand Eyes of Strix. This row is for Chaos Turbo, Mind Control. Still a pretty underrated card. A lot of people don't have a lot of faith in this card, but I think they just don't use it very well. It's kind of like how Solemn Judgment wasn't used a super ton for some reason. I think people were intimidated by it. This card, you can really look like a fool if you take a Sand Cannon or a Sinister. But you just have to understand how to play it, when to play it. And what I mean by that is you're not always going to know what they have. But you have to decide to yourself, like, is this a crucial moment? If they flip a Magician of Faith, will it matter? Do they have anything in there to begin with? Because some people will actually take a Magician of Faith. They'll be forced to set down a Magician of Faith because they don't have any other monsters on a first turn set. Just look at the results. What do they have going on? It could just be a deco. Do you really care about Decorchi? I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't. It depends on the game. But generally speaking, mid to late game, this card can be amazing, especially if they summon a Chaos monster and you just banish their Chaos monster because they can't Book a Moon. If you snatch a Chaos monster, they can Book a Moon it. They can't Book a Moon this. It's not going to matter. So, Mind Crush, good against Chaos Turbo because they're going to have a lot of cards in their hand. Delinquent Duo cannot be as good sometimes against Chaos Turbo because a lot of times they have Thunder Dragons, Night Assailants, but this card Can be really good for stopping them from doing what they want to do, especially when they reoccur stuff with Magician of Faith. Also, this card's good against like Rhoda, stuff like that, but I wouldn't necessarily side this for Warrior. Soul Release, good at 1 or 2, really. You don't want to see it early. It's not good early. But late game, mid-late game, you can just banish all their lights, all their darks, whatever you got. Banish their power spells so they can't recur them. Kind of disrupt their strategy completely. Kaiko is just obviously good. Everyone knows that at this point, I think. Banish their light, banishes everything. I think that's pretty self-explanatory why that could be good in that situation. Obviously, this card is extremely vulnerable, though, against Grandmaster Sasuke and Mystic Swordsman, things like that. Heavy Slump, not uncommon for your opponent on Chaos Turbo to get 8 cards or more in one turn. With Thunder Dragons on their hand, things like that, it's not uncommon. The amount of spells that reoccur, upstarts, it's not uncommon for them to draw into power spells and reoccur them enough to get 8 cards in their hand. It's possible. Also, if you play something like Cyberjar, it makes that even easier. And if you reset them back to 2 cards, I mean, that could be devastating. Card's good against face downs. This is good for resetting the hand. Things get a little out of control. Good against banishing their monsters. Bottomless Trap Hole. Roll Command is a really good card. A lot of the roll cards are really good. Roll Command is just, essentially just says that their flip effect monsters, they just don't work anymore. They're just normal monsters at this point, as long as this card's on the field. This right here is for Burn. Breaker is a really good card. It's staple most of the time, but some people don't play him in the main, but you should at least play him in the side because it's really good against Burn. And the reason why, not for, obviously a lot of Burn cards are chainable, but a lot of their cards that they need are not chainable. Like level 11 Area B, Gravity Bind, those annoying cards that keep you from really taking them out. Well, those cards, they're not chainable at all. So, I mean, they are chainable technically, Gravity Bind, but it's not going to matter. You don't want to use this card on their face down blank cards that you don't know what they are. You want to use this card in your hand for when they're stalling. Yeah, you don't want to be behind on Burn and them stalling. You want every turn to matter that you have because you're on a limited clock. Pikaru's Circle of Enchantment, card that I don't see too often but is good. Damage to you from your opponent's card effects becomes 0 until the end of this turn. Meaning, like, they're chaining a bunch of trap cards, right? A lot of Burn players will chain cards. Some will burn you turn to turn. I think a lot of them are kind of getting wise to cards like this and try to burn you a little bit each turn. But a lot of times they'll try to go for that finishing blow and have like near perfect damage. Well, they chain, then you chain, right? At the end of their chain, you chain this card and all that damage becomes 0. They waste so many cards. It can be devastating for the Burn player. It can be a little tricky to use this card, but it could be really, really good. Hallowed Life Barrier, discard a card from your hand, you take no battle damage from your opponent. Also, your monsters cannot be destroyed this turn. This can also be good against Reasoning Gate stuff. It sucks that you have to discard a card, but it can save you. Roll Decree, good for obvious reasons. Dust Tornado, you want to snipe out their cards before they can activate them, before they can chain them. Emergency Provisions can just save you. Then once again, they get out perfect damage, then you can chain this card, get rid of some of your spells. Or get rid of some of your spells or traps and then live the turn and sometimes come back and win because they have nothing else. Mystic Walk, essentially the same theory, right? Except for with monsters and getting rid of one of the annoying tokens. Solemn Wishes, this card's a little slow, but honestly it can be really good. Life points really, really matter to Burn, so obviously it's a win condition. So having this and just gaining life every time you draw a card can be really, really good and really annoying to them. Deswombat can be a really good card, but obviously has vulnerabilities. So if you have ways of protecting this card, definitely a good card. And Tribe Infecting Virus can just get rid of tokens, Ojama tokens, Scapegoat tokens, whatever, things like that. So hopefully you liked this video. If you did, let us know down below. We'll make more videos like this in the future. I'm probably going to take decks onto Dueling Book here in the near future and go onto the ladder and actually demonstrate some matches. Yeah, so, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.